Welcome to White Shadow Fare, where I'm making things homemade and with love. Today, we're making sourdough pizza bread. This is the perfect appetizer. So our ingredient list is as follows. You need an active starter, water, bread flour or all-purpose flour, salt, provolone cheese, mozzarella cheese, and pepperoni. So let's get started. First, with your active starter, you're going to weigh out 100 grams. Any starter will work. My starter might look a little different than yours because I'm using 100% whole wheat starter. So to that starter, you're going to add 330 grams of water, and then you're going to mix that thoroughly to get it well incorporated. Now it's time to add your bread flour. You need 500 grams of either all-purpose or bread flour, and you're going to mix that thoroughly. Your dough is going to be very shaggy. You might even think it's not going to absorb all of that water, but it will get it together the best that you can, and after it autolyses for an hour, it will turn out to be perfect. This dough has a lot of heavy inclusions, including chunks of pepperoni and chunks of provolone and mozzarella cheese, so you do not want to use a high hydration dough when you're putting that many inclusions in. So here you can see that I'm kind of pulling the dough apart and just picking up any loose flour that I can find along the way, scraping that down, and then I will cover it, set it on the counter off to the side for an hour to autolyse. All right, at the 1 hour mark, you are going to get 10 grams of salt and 30 grams of water, stir that together and pour that over your dough. You're gonna work that into your dough by using kind of a pinch and squeeze method. It might take a few minutes to get it all worked in, but you're also working the gluten at this point in time as well. Now this combination of cheese and pepperoni was a request by my daughter-in-law, so I thought I would give it a try. It did come out wonderfully, so I hope you'll enjoy this recipe. Okay, now that the salt has been completely added, it's ready to let that dough sit covered for 30 minutes, and you are going to do your first of 2 stretch and folds. So you're simply stretching the dough out and folding it over top of the other side, and you're increasing gluten, structure, strength, and adding a little bit of air to your dough. So you're stretching that dough out, stretching it over top of the solid mass of dough, and you keep turning the bowl until you have done at least 4 of those stretches. And then I like to smooth the dough out by doing a few tucks and curling it under and getting nice tension across the top of the dough. Once you're done with that, you're going to let the 30 minutes go by and do another set of stretch and folds, and then wait another 30 minutes. Now, I don't like to use shredded cheese in this. I like the larger bits of cheese when you dice it up, and I do a very fine dice. So I suggest not using shredded cheese in this. Plus, shredded cheese has that powdery coating on the outside that I just don't think is really good for us. So I try to do all of the shredding of my cheese on my own anyway. So instead of shredding it this time, I just do a very fine dice, break up that dice and place it into a bowl, and you will need 4 ounces of cheese per loaf. This only makes 1 loaf, but I did make 2 loaves here because I gave one to my daughter-in-law and kept one for us. You can use any combination of cheese that you like, or just use one type of cheese. I happen to have both provolone and mozzarella on hand, so that's what I used. Provolone has a little bit more flavor than the mozzarella, so I thought it would be a good combination. I just got one of these sticks of pepperoni, and I only used half of the pepperoni per loaf. So if you were only going to make 1 loaf, you would really only need half that amount. right, now that 30 minutes is up, since your last stretch and fold, instead of doing a stretch and fold, we're going to laminate the dough by stretching it out really thin. Once you have the dough completely stretched out, you're going to add your cheeses and your pepperoni. Try not to overload it too much because this is going to really weigh the dough down. After an hour of resting, it is time to do the pre-shape. So you're just going to get the dough out of your container and get it into a nice tight ball and let it rest for 15 minutes. Now it's time for the final shaping of your loaves. Determine what container you're going to put them in. They can go into a loaf pan. I put mine into a Banneton basket. Before I bought my Bannetons, I used to just put it into a small bowl. All right, once you have them in the container that you're going to shape them in, cover them with a tea towel and let them sit out for 3 to 4 hours to rise, and then they're going to get placed in the refrigerator to proof overnight. So after they've been in the refrigerator overnight, or up to probably about 48 hours at the most, you are going to turn them out, put them into a preheated 450-degree oven. And if you are baking them in a Dutch oven, that is fine. Put the cover on. I like to bake mine the entire time with the cover on. It just has a softer crust, but if you like a crunchier crust, you're going to only bake it for 25 to 30 minutes with the lid on, and then 20 minutes with the lid off. Make sure that the internal temperature measures somewhere between 205 and 210 degrees. And this is what it looked like at the halfway point. You can see the cheese is starting to bubble out. And this is what it looks like when it's done. I hope you'll give this savory treat a try. It made excellent bread. We dipped it into a little bit of pasta sauce. So thank you for joining me here at White Shadow Fare, and I hope that you'll consider making this loaf of bread. I would really appreciate if you would consider subscribing and giving me the thumbs up with the like button.